Hi guys, I am John Carrick, author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and the Legend of Ashley Fox. Today we have 100 Bullets 62, Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Risso, with a cover by Dave Johnson, which is really good. I really love this bit. Got a dead guy floating in the pool with Agent Graves in the bloody octopus from the body. And one of the things I love so much about this book is it doesn't try to make every page a priceless work of art, because that's not what a comic book needs to be. A comic book is a story. And this, right here in this cover by Dave Johnson, tells a story, even though it doesn't really relate to the issue at hand. And a big part of what comics is it is the art, yes, but more than that, it's telling a story. And so the art does not need to be the Mona Lisa. It's nice when it is, but you can't really afford that. In sales, I've heard it called a gold-plated radio flyer. Nobody wants a gold-plated radio flyer. You know, a wagon you pull your kids around in? Nobody wants that because you can't afford it. And it's just going to get beat up and banged up and left outside in the rain anyhow. Some things in life are made to be abused, and comic books are one of them. They were never meant to be priceless works of art, and it's only magic when they are. Or it is deliberate magic when they are, and this cover is one of those times. And a lot of what this book is, a lot of what writing is clever exposition, is reminding the audience what you told them 60 pages ago or 6 months ago. That's one place where novels and comics overlap. If you're buying a comic book every month and you're into the story, then there are necessarily massive gaps between one part of the story and the next. And as a writer, as a novelist who produced 2 350-page novels, I promise you, there are things in the novel that you will remember that your audience has forgotten. And you need to remind them in a non-abusive way about what you're about to tell them. And a lot of a comic book needs to be that. A lot of a television show needs to be clever exposition. It needs to be these little mini speeches where one character reminds the other character what's at stake. And in the case of a threat, it works really well. Jesse the Body Ventura said, "Wrestling's not hard. It's the bits between the matches where I got to get on camera and make a bunch of shit up and remember to plug the new match and the new event that's coming up next week. That's what's hard." And that's what this is. So Cole and Branch are having a drink, not at the same bar that Megan and Benito were at, because that ended with Spain punching out Bosco, who had sold him the drugs that he bought. And he was also with Tino's baby mama, Pearl. I'm getting better at remembering the names. So here is Branch and Cole having a conversation. Cole keeps calling Branch names. He doesn't call him Branch. Down here he says, "Geez Louise, would you lighten up, fat boy?" He says, "Why don't you call me Branch for once?" He says, "That's not going to happen." So Branch thinks that he's about to get killed as well. That's another thing that's important. He thinks Cole is here to kill him. And he's saying things like, "Well, you're here to kill me. But first," he says, "besides, I don't think of you as a branch. You're more of a stump." And that makes them both laugh. But Branch thinks he's about to get killed. Orders another round, says it's on him. And meanwhile, Spain has been thrown out of the bar where the last thing we saw was him go after Bosco, who is Pearl's new boyfriend. And when the bouncer tells him to take off and Tino says, "Yeah, we should go," he says, "Yeah, you know what? My teeth are floating." And he starts pissing on the ground in front of the bouncer. Now that wouldn't matter. That would just be a cut to a scene. But it does matter later on. The same way the punch, and then we cut before we got any of the action. So here, This is Cole explaining to Branch that he's not going to kill him. This is actually pretty good. So here we have Cole asking Branch if he's ready for what comes next. And Branch says, I don't think anybody is, no matter what they say. They're not. Nobody's ready. And Burns says, I was born ready. And Branch says, that's the most nihilistic, romantic piece of shit I think I've ever heard. Now Branch thinks he's about to be killed. So that's what he thinks Cole is asking, are you ready for what comes next? He thinks he's about to be shot and left to die right here on the floor of the bar. Meanwhile, Spain comes in and sits down next to them at some point. Not yet, I guess. Cole says, I don't think I know how to take that. And Branch says, either with a spoonful of sugar or a grain of salt, doesn't matter to me. What should we drink to this time? And Burns says, well, this one's on you. And Branch says, to the man who will avenge my death. And Cole says, thanks. Meanwhile, Megan and Augustus and Benito are having dinner at his place in Miami. He's making some kind of salmon or trout for them, skinning it and taking it out to the grill. And they're having a conversation about what's going on in the trust. This is one of the most open and upfront conversations in this entire comic. It's the only one that is not subtext. Megan believes that Javier Vasco is the guy in charge of having Madrid and Daniel Perez murdered, and that he's coming after Augustus Medici next. And we don't know yet what part Medici has with Graves. We know he met Graves down in New Orleans at the horse race in last issue. So they talked recently. Megan thinks Graves is working with Vasco. What she's doing is playing devil's advocate and stacking making the worst possible scenario, the worst case scenario. Whereas Benito says he does not think Graves is working with Vasco, and he thinks that Graves and the Minutemen are working their own angle. And no one really knows exactly what Augustus Medici has lined up. I suspect he is working all the angles. He is probably controlling those other three people that we saw who suggested that he be killed with Graves back in Seattle when those two kids won the lottery, or were playing the lottery and didn't win and watched the car roll down the cliff and then went and found the dead guy who was holding the winning lottery ticket in his hand. That meeting. So Benito doesn't know what's going on. Megan is making suppositions, but Augustus Medici definitely has his hand in the works. I suspect he's working with Vasco and the other people who are in that room, as well as Graves. He's probably watching all of them. The one thing a king has to be is excessively paranoid. He has to be watching everything going on inside his kingdom, as well as all the little schemes and scams going on outside the kingdom. And by that I mean whatever business they're doing. Meanwhile, you have Spain and Tino walking home from the bar. They're walking home from the bar after Spain pissed on the bouncer's shoes, and then the bouncer came after him and he broke his jaw. So that's what's happening in this conversation. And they arrive at the hotel and he says, is this normal? No. So a bunch of cops and ambulance out in front of the hotel. I should leave the art up for a second. It's really pretty nice. A lot of open space where there's no chaos. Where there's chaos, you get pushed in frames. And that is Terry. And that cop is trashed. And he's foaming at the mouth. And Spain is freaked out. And he can't go over there because he's essentially checked in with Terry. And when they find the drugs in his room, this is back in 2004. Marijuana is not legal to have in a hotel room anywhere. And so when they find the drugs in his room, if it is marijuana and not crack, which since he called it Bush, I'm presuming it is, that there's going to be hell to pay. And the cops may very well arrest him too. So he asks Tino to go in, since he works there, and find out what's going on. And then we cut to Bosco, who is pissed And he's, get my blade, that motherfucker. And this guy says, look, man, he only cold knocked you out. And he is going to cut him into bits and pieces. And he asks for his sword. This guy brings out his sword. Pearl is not happy about this, because if he goes and kills Spain, some of that is going to get on her baby daddy, because he was standing next to Spain. So there's a lot going on. This is a lot of exposition. A lot of these scenes where we remind everyone what's going on. A threat. This is escalation. This is not just exposition. This is escalation. And so is this. Escalation scenes are easy to get exposition out of. They're great for that. And that image is hilarious. Spain and Bosco are both two very well drawn characters. All the characters in this book are so unique. They're always in character. They're always in costume. Everything fits. He's got this crazy dog he calls Shogun. This is hilarious. This is awesome. He wears a headband. Like, really, this is Fat Albert's crew. Constantine was out. Back when everything was awesome. Look, they already have this many trade paperbacks. I guess we're on book 60, and if this is 6 books each, you could have 10 trade paperbacks. This is the bar. Spain tells Tino, where's their regular bar around here? He says, Little Deuce down on 14th, meet me there. So Spain is about to walk in and sit down next to Branch and Cole. And there he is. This is him walking in through the front with all the bands and their playbills. And Cole, in the meantime, explains to Branch that he's not here to kill him. Fucking chill out, man. I'm not here to kill you. You're not? This is actually really good. Cole Burns in this scene is just like Brad Pitt's character in Killing Them Softly, the assassin in that. And Stump here, Mr. Branch, just keeps making comments about how he knew if he came back to the States, it would be the death of him. And Cole says, it's not where you die, it's how you die that counts. And he's like, well, this is weird Stockholm syndrome. I'm actually starting to like you. He's like, why not? What's not to like? And what, you want to go? Then go. It's no skin off my knees. You're not here for that? Nope. Then what? We get to the main course. Meanwhile, Spain has come in. So the dialogue is great. And what's happening in the background is just as relatively important. And we cut. You get one page of it and we cut. So now Augustus Medici and Megan Dietrich and Benito are having dinner out by the pool at his beach house in Miami. This is actually a really good scene too, although this is more openly exposition than usual. This is more blatant. Essentially, Augustus Medici is schooling Benito and Megan, who I suspect he wants them to get together, even if he is sleeping with her. He probably still wants her to marry his son because it would be good to unite the two houses. And he, first she compliments his work with the fish. He's like, it's just the ingredients. I didn't do anything. She says, that makes you a chef. She's, really climbing all over him. Not a cook like Vasco. And he says, why would you say that? And she says, please, I think we both know who's behind any opposition to your plans for the trust. Who is, then? Agent Graves. And Augustus says, Benito, if you believe what you just said about Cole Burns, who we know is working with Graves, then who is Graves working for? And what Benito just said about Cole Burns was, back in the kitchen. So in this scene, Augustus, he's still teaching them kind of and letting them air their thoughts and grievances. And Megan is sort of laying out the obvious. She says that Burns said that there are families allying against the House of Medici, and that if I align with the House of Medici, he made it clear that the Minutemen are still needed. And Augustus says, do you think he was angling for his old job back? And Benito says, why would he be? It sounds like he's got work. She says, what do you mean, Benito? Well, obviously he still knows what's going on, so he's got to be a part of it. And he has no reason to warn you, Megan, and every reason to recruit you. So Benito is saying that Burns is out to manipulate them into maneuvering all of this in the first place. Burns was obviously sent by Graves because he's working for him. And that means he wants to see the House of Medici and the House of Dietrich stand together against whatever's coming, Vasco and the others who are lining against them, which we saw back in Seattle. And that's what he's sort of teasing from these two kids. He's trying to teach his son, and Megan is a little bit default aggressive, which makes sense. This is total exposition. And the way that Augustus Medici is doing it is so school professor. It really is. Benito says, I don't see him standing with Vasco. Why not? Because he's a thug. And then Megan butts in, and the Minutemen aren't. Don't let the handmade suits fool you. They at least play by a code, Megan, which makes them predictable. The same can't... And now this is interesting, because the next line is her finishing his sentence. That's why this is so much exposition, because it's easier, no matter who says the line, when the lines are interchangeable, that's when you know it's exposition. It just needs to be said for the audience. And so this is what this turns into, is her coming on board and echoing his thoughts. Whereas Javier cannot be trusted, he always acts in his own best interests. And that makes him predictable too. And that's exactly what Augustus Medici says, even when he's wrong. So that's being predictable. And Benito butts in, well, if he thinks Graves is on his side, he's not just wrong, he's dead wrong. So everyone is reading from the same playbook, as it were, which makes sense. I mean, in a scene like this, they're all extensions of each other. As opposed to a scene like this, where this girl, this bartender, buys Branch, I want to call him Stump now all the time, a drink, and Cole asks him if that's his kind of honey. And he says, not necessarily, but, I'll take whatever I can get. What do you think about her? And he shows him a picture. So now this is main course. Now we get back to the reason Burns is talking to Branch at all. Shows him a picture of Echo Memoria and explains that she was running with Lono and she stole a picture twice, a painting twice. She stole it the first time with Monroe Dietrich and, Monroe Tannenbaum and the other guy, Carl Reynolds. And she stole it the second time with Lono from Megan's house while Megan was with Milo Garrett. And Megan didn't know she was with Milo Garrett, or she knew and he didn't know. Either way. So that's Echo Memoria, and Spain's pretending not to look at the picture. And Burns asks him, why do you have a picture of her up on your wall? And he's like, oh my God, I slept with her. And Spain is listening. Was she any good? That's hilarious. So right here, I had sex with that girl. And that's when Spain looks over at the picture. Was she any good? And Burns has to say, I lasted like 30 seconds. Which is hilarious. And then Tino arrives. Yo, Spain, I got the 411. This might be good. I think Andy Diggle wrote Losers, and I like that. If this is a kung fu book, this might be worth reading. Silent Dragon? Maybe. And they go outside, but first we get Benito and Megan outside. So this is what a twisted, braided storyline looks like. Every time you think you're going to get a scene you want to see, it switches to someone else in the ensemble. And she says, oh, it smells good out here. Salt water and oranges. Benito says, that's my cologne. Out here it smells like bullshit. And that is Benito because his dad is feeding them over here. And Megan says, that seems like a scent I thought you'd be more likely to wear. He says, I think my father's making a mistake. Vasco is not the enemy. Graves is. They both are. Again, this is just a whole lot of exposition. Or one of them would like us to think that. That I can accept. The question is, which one? Augustus, from his position as the most powerful member of the trust, he's the only one who's got really clear thinking. He doesn't need or want to align with anyone. I think he would just as easily kill Megan, despite the fact that Benito likes her, as anyone else. If Benito were not more obedient and more interested in learning his father's business, Benito might make the short list himself. So anyhow, outside, Tino is now explaining to Spain what's happened. The drugs, the joint that he left him was dusted. It took 6 cops and hotel security to bring him down. And he's like, he doesn't mess with angel dust. Oh my God, that joint you gave me. You son of a bitch. Was it you? Did you do this? He's like, no, man. It was that guy you punched in the bar. I got it from him. So he's now explaining that the guy Spain punched in the bar that got them thrown out is the one who gave them the joint laced with angel dust. But there's more. It's not over yet. It's that guy you hit in the bar. He's the one. But there's more. There's more. What do you mean there's more? He ate your dog. What? He drops the knife. Terry ate the dog, Cookie. Whatever the dog's name was. Probably not Cookie. And Spain is tripping out. Meanwhile, Burns is with Branch, who is thrown up and is at least relieved that he's not here to kill him. And he wants him to find Echo Memoria. That's the job that he has for him, is to find her. And he gives him a cigarette while he's vomiting in the toilet. And that is this is one of those issues where the middle is, if the middle is great, you don't need endings. This is a great middle issue. Whereas I suspect those middle Wiley issues, they were bad for a couple reasons. Mostly because my head was in pretty serious pain. 100 Bullet 62. Talk to you guys tomorrow.